Hello, friends, and welcome to a 1 week delayed Mighty Blazes pop-up book rec party. Give people a chance to join. Hopefully they will. But in the meantime, since they'll be able to catch this as a recording on our YouTube channel, I'll get started. And my name is Mary Weber O'Malley, and I work with the Mighty Blaze. I'm also a bookseller for Skylark Bookshop in Missouri. All of my co-Blazers readers have other stuff going on tonight, so you are stuck with me. But fear not, I come with 8 amazing October releases that you will want to pick up. So if you are just joining us for the first time, A Mighty Blaze is a group of volunteers that came together in the age of COVID to connect all of the authors who had their book tours canceled with readers. We've grown into a huge interview show, and we have interviews several days every week. So you can jump over to our website and see our schedule. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can also join our newsletter by going to our website and signing up. And that way you will be notified of all the great stuff we have going on. I'm putting into the comments our bookshop.org stall. And let's see here. I think I just told you what I was putting, but I didn't actually put it. So here we go. Our bookshop.org stall has most of the titles I'll be talking about tonight, and our wonderful producer, Abby, will put the titles and authors into the comments as we go along. Let's see. Before I get started with these titles, I just want to remind you to support our organization through bookshop.org. You can also support us through libro.fm. If you listen to audiobooks at all, then I would hope you will check out libro.fm. Of course, your library is a great source for audiobooks, but if you're using that other stream service, please check out Libro. It costs the same. Your credits never expire. You can listen across devices. Once you download an audiobook, it is yours forever. If you stop your subscription, we will not take those back. They are yours. And you can designate A Mighty Blaze as your preferred bookstore, and that way we will get a portion of every audiobook that you purchase. So lots more great details on Libro's website. You also get book recs from booksellers like me, not an algorithm. And I have to tell you, this book came out last month, but I think it is one of the best audiobooks I have ever listened to. And it is called The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. He wrote The Midnight Library. The Life Impossible, I actually rationed out my listening time because I didn't want this book to end. It is a glorious book about a widowed woman who lost her son as a child, who is gifted later in life a house by her friend. And the house is on the island of Ibiza off the coast of Spain. It is a magical, wonderful book with some of the best narrating I've ever heard. So I am fresh off my fall booksellers conference. Just got back today. It was a magical 4 days of meeting authors and hearing about books that are coming out this winter, next spring, and even into next summer. That is such a bookseller perk for me. The other one is meeting authors of books that I have read and loved, like this first one. This is American Rapture by C.J. Leede. C.J. Leede wrote Maeve Fly, Maeve Fly. I should have grabbed that copy too because it has one of the most horrifically graphic, incredible, magical book covers I have ever seen in my life. And I keep it face face out in my book room. CJ writes feminist horror, and American Rapture has been called a blistering, feverish ride through a uniquely American apocalypse. Somebody else called it an outright assault of a novel. CJ Lead writes such an amazing, she's just incredible. So, Never Been Kissed, about to get screwed. A virus is spreading across America, transforming the infected and making them feral with lust. Sophie, a good Catholic girl, must survive the hellscape of the Midwest to try and save her twin brother while the world around her burns. Along the way, she discovers there are far worse fates than dying a virgin. Neil Gaiman's American Gods meets The Last of Us in this epic and sweeping novel, American Rapture by CJ Lead. It is incredible. I loved it so much, and she is delightful, and she signed my copy. So, oh my gosh, this is now goes into my trophy room. So that is number one. We're going to stick with the horror theme. If I had my druthers, I would just showcase all horror titles. But I know that not everybody's reading the horror like I am. And hey, if you guys watching are, you want to post a comment on what you're reading, or if you've heard of or read any of these books, love to hear from you. This next one is Richard Chizmar, Memorials. And I fell in love with Richard's work through Chasing the Boogeyman, which was just an incredible psychological suspense. Memorials had a very Blair Witch Hunt feel for me. There's really no or very little, graphic horror, unlike CJ Lead. Richard is a little more on the psychological suspense, but boy, does he... Reading this book had me turning on extra lights. It had me checking that the front door was locked. It had me looking over my shoulder. This is about a team of students, 3 students from a small college, who take off on a road trip through Appalachia to get the backstory on all of those roadside memorials that you see. But somebody does not want them looking into these. And wow, it was just incredible. So Richard Chizmar, Memorials is my second title. Going to move into some historical fiction now. So this does have a good October feel because it's got a witchy vibe. Ancient sorcery, magic gemstones. Only one woman can save a city in ruins. And this is The Stone Witch of Florence by Anna Rash. So this is 1348 Florence. Ginevra di Gasparo has a gift. She can harness the hidden powers of gemstones to heal the sick. But when word spread of her unusual abilities, she was condemned as a witch and banished. Now as the Black Plague ravages Italy, the same men who expelled Ginevra are begging for her return. Gosh, I loved this book. It's very atmospheric. You really get a feel for what it was like to live in this time and place of the plague, and women who, if they were really lucky, they got banished instead of being burned for doing anything with herbs, any kind of healing, anything that threatened the men. Got the women into trouble. So this is a wonderful, wonderful book, The Stone Witch of Florence. Great historic fiction. It is a thriller. Yes, Renee. Thanks for commenting. It is a thriller as well. There's definitely stuff going on that you don't know who's perpetrating. It's a great mixture of genres. So thanks for pointing that out. Part of the problem of being a bookseller, bookseller problems, is I read these books. Oh, hello from Southeast. Oh my gosh, Southeast Florida. Renee, is everything okay? Your home, your family, your friends? I hope that you all weathered the storm and are safe and well. So yeah, I read these books like The Stone Witch of Florence. I read as a bound manuscript probably 6 months ago. So I sometimes, by the time it comes time for them to be released, I sometimes forget some of the details, but I never forget how much I loved these books. This next one is one of the most unique books. I think this one comes out on Tuesday. And by the way, these might not all quite be out yet. These are all October releases. So they could be releasing later this month. This one, I believe, releases this coming Tuesday. I love this author so much. And what she did with this book is nothing short of incredible. This is Remember You Will Die by Eden Robbins. What will it take for the death of Poppy Fletcher to make sense? Poppy Fletcher dies too young, and the entire world is eager to accept it and move on, except for her mother. Her mother is Peregrine, an AI woman walking the earth, a fugitive loathed and misunderstood by the very people who aided in and benefited from her creation. As more details emerge about Poppy's death, the facts add up less and less. So this is the story of Poppy and Peregrine, and it spans several centuries. And it is written, I'm so glad to hear that, Renee. I'm so glad you are safe. This book is written completely, I'm not going to be able to show you quite, but it's all written in the form of obituaries over centuries. Absolutely incredible. Each of these obituaries is like a short story in its own right. And as you're reading them, the story comes through and becomes clearer and clearer. This is a planet slowly dying, a world increasingly disconnected, and the consequences of ego and greed. The lives, deaths, and grief of others throughout history uncover not only what happened to Poppy, but a tale of art and love, betrayal and redemption, and ultimately what it means to be alive. Truly, I would pick this book up and put it down because unlike a novel, and I'm a fast reader, with the usual novel you're reading and it's just cohesive, but because each one of these obits is its own short story, I would set the book down and just digest it. It's like eating the best tapas meal you've ever had, where every little plate that goes around of every dish is just so delicious. You need to take in each one. That's how I felt. Poetry, sometimes it was, but truly it was a lot like just a lot of short stories or essays that are loosely connected, but the story flows through them as you go through it. So Remember You Will Die, Eden Robbins, one of the most unique books I have ever read. Just incredible. And this next one, this one had me so incredibly conflicted as I read it. This is Hate Follow by Erin Quinn Kong. So last spring, I was at a huge book festival in Columbia, Missouri, called the Unbound Book Festival. It's been going on for about 10 years. I love going down there because that's when I get to visit the bookstore I work for, Skylark Bookshop. And this woman came up and she said she watches my weekly book talks. I do a weekly book talk on Skylark's social media. It also is on my Blurb Your Enthusiasm Facebook page every week. I cross post to that. So this woman came up and she said, "Oh my gosh, my friend wrote a book. It's really good. You've got to read it." And honestly, I was like, "Oh, is this a self-published book? Is it what's going on?" But I saw it was through a traditional publisher. I requested a copy, and I am so glad I did. Hate Follow would make an amazing book club book because you will want to talk about it when you're done reading. So, to her 1 million Instagram followers, influencer Whitney Golden's life looks just about perfect. But her curated existence explodes when her teenage daughter, Mia, sues her for invasion of privacy. So, Whitney is a widow. Her husband died suddenly when her children were very young and left her floundering to try and make a living and support her family. So she starts blogging. This is in the days of the blogs when they were just getting popular, and she's blogging all of her feelings about what it's like to be now a single mom to these young children and how much she misses her husband. Her blog takes off. People want to know more about her. And that leads her to this life of being a huge influencer. So when her teenage daughter, she's supposed to have this big photo shoot with her new boyfriend that she's going to, this is the big reveal of her boyfriend to the public, to her fans. They live in a huge mansion. They have this amazing life because she posts everything on social media. So when the daughter sues her and says, "Not only do I want you to stop using my content or me as content, but I want you to remove all the photos of me and my twin little siblings and our dad." The way she does this, going back and forth, 1 minute. Oh my gosh, you're currently reading She's Not Sorry. I love Mary Kubica. She's one of my favorite. You read like I do, Renee. You're all over the place. I'm the same way. A rom-com. Love Mary Oliver. She's incredible. Hate Follow. 1 minute I would be rooting for the mom and think the daughter is just way out of line, and a chapter later I'd be like, oh my gosh, of course the daughter's right and the mother needs to listen. So she does this great job of really letting you see both sides of this. Just a really well done book and a great hi Julie, great book club book. So Hate Follow, Erin Quinn Kong, one of my favorite books of the month. One of them. I have several, including this next one. This is just an absolutely, I think this might be a debut too. I'm trying to see if this is, she's done essays and things like that. I just think this might be her debut. This is Libby Lost and Found by Stephanie Booth. The premise of this book is there's an author who is the mega best-selling author of a fantasy series called The Fallen Children, that has rabid fans, fans on the level of Harry Potter. So this woman has written these books and millions of children have fallen in love with these stories. And now Libby has to write the final book in the series. This is going to be it. Couple things you need to know about Libby. Number one, nobody knows who she is. She has no family. She lives a very isolated life. She writes under a pseudonym, so nobody knows who she really is. She lives a very anonymous life, but also very empty. She's never never fell in love, never formed relationships, or even, great friendships. She just lives with her dog. So something else you need to know about Libby is she is really struggling to write her last book. And this is a huge problem because it's overdue and the fans are screaming. But Libby is struggling to write it because she's been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. What comes out of this is Libby ends up having to ask an 11-year-old girl who is her self-described number one fan of these books, knows all of the characters, knows everything about them, and Libby finds her to. This is an adult book, but this it brought me back to my tween years and the books that I was falling in love with, and the books that made me fall in love with reading, and the series. This encompasses everything. It's got the very adult theme of the early onset Alzheimer's. And my mother, when she was 56, was diagnosed with early onset. I was in my 20s. I had 3 very young children, and now was tasked with caring for my mother. I was also caring for her mother, who was in assisted living at the time. So it was an incredibly difficult time for me. Reading this book brought me back to that time, but in such a way, because my life was so chaotic and I had so many people to care for. This book kind of let me revisit it from a safe place. My mother's illness also gave me insight into how it might have been for my mother in those early days, when her memory was going. So definitely an adult book, but it's got it. I know that sounds dark with the early onset. It's done so beautifully and charmingly, and the friendship between her and this girl and the girl's family. It's got a clear villain, like those books that you loved as a kid. Thank you, Renee. I truly, truly loved this book, and I found myself smiling throughout reading it, rooting for Libby, rooting for that young fan. Yes, if you want, I call these books a hug for the heart. If you want a hug for the heart, a book that is really wonderful, well written, but something that is, I don't want to say it's a light read, but it's not too complicated. It was an easy read. I loved it. This is the kind of book, after reading something very heavy, I turn to, and palate cleanser, but this is so much more than that. It's a beautifully, beautifully done book. Libby, Lost and Found. All right, I've got a couple more for you. Again, for those of you who joined late, it's just me tonight. All of my fellow Blazers had stuff going on and book deadlines and just a lot. So, yeah, you got me, but 8 titles. And if you joined late, you can go back and rewatch to see the titles I talked about earlier. So this next book is absolutely just a gem. Just a gem. I don't know if any of you were lucky enough, and if you weren't, go back and get The Matchmaker's Gift by Linda Cohen Loigman. That came out 2 years ago. Oh, thank you, Renee. Linda is back with The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. These books are also hugs for the heart. Charming, funny, a beautiful cover. Absolutely beautiful cover. So this is when Augusta Stern relocates from New York City to Florida, she doesn't anticipate running into Irving Rivkin, the man who broke her heart 60 years ago. In 1920s Brooklyn, a young Augusta torn between becoming a pharmacist like her father or an apothecary like her great-aunt Esther, impulsively uses a potent elixir with disastrous consequences. With her budding romance in tatters, she vows to reject Esther's enhancements forever. Now confronted with Irving, Augusta is still haunted by the mistakes of her past. Can she reclaim the magic of her youth? Linda goes back and forth between present day and 1920s Brooklyn. She does it in such a beautiful way This is just a gorgeous book. Renee, um, they probably, you know what? I will post a photo, and I'll have social media share it too on A Mighty Blaze, and I'll post it on Blurb Your Enthusiasm, so you can see all the covers. I will do that. So I'll do that right after this broadcast. So check out Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. I have one last title for you, and this is a memoir. It reads like a novel. In fact, I thought it was a novel until my best book-selling friend, Pamela Klinger-Horn, said, no, it's a memoir. And I looked and went, oh my gosh, it is. This is A Rosy Life in Italy. If you have ever dreamt of packing it all up and moving somewhere to, our producer Abby and I were talking earlier about, who doesn't dream of moving to a small town and opening a bookstore, or, opening in a bed and breakfast in Stars Hollow, or any number of those things. Well, this woman did it. A Rosy Life in Italy. Rosie Miledes, landlady, doubles her rent in cold, wet, overpriced Ireland. So she packs up her family, her 2 dogs, and all her possessions into a camper van and sets off across Europe to sunny Italy, where she plans to grow her destination wedding planning business. Even though it's been a dream she attempted to follow several times, she and her family soon find out moving abroad to start a new life is not all sunshine and gelato. Between a hurricane, a global pandemic, and accidentally buying a massive villa that has definitely seen better days, from 8 cousins in the middle of a long-standing family dispute. Do you see what I'm saying? Doesn't it sound like a novel? So her husband's game for this. They decide they're just going to sell some stuff, buy this camper van, load up their kids and their dogs, and leave Ireland to move to Italy. And they buy this giant villa that they're like, hey, we can bring mom and dad to live here. They can live on one floor. We'll live on another floor. And we can rent out rooms. But they're buying this thing from this Italian land sale. So all of the family members have to agree to it. They have a feud going on. People come in and start literally taking the doors off the hinges and running off with them. It's just absolutely crazy. So the trials and tribulations of the COVID pandemic, which forced them to shutter their booming wedding planning business, and the difficulty of integrating into a completely new country, culture, and language while nearly everything is shut down. It is, Kim, it is both, but I would say it is mostly funny. There are some serious things that go on in here, some very serious things that go on. But Rosie, even through these darker things, finds humor, and her writing is charming. It's a couple of times I kind of laughed through it. A couple of times I rolled my eyes and went, are you absolutely bananas for doing this? This is absolutely nuts that you went off and did this. And yet there's some part of us that wishes we could do the same. So, excuse me, A Rosy Life in Italy. So I will quickly go through, pardon me while I bend over and grab all the books that I tossed onto the floor. I'll go through my titles once more, and then per Renee's request, I will post a photo on my Blurb Your Enthusiasm Facebook page right after this broadcast. So talked about A Rosy Life in Italy by Rosie Miledes. We have Memorials by Richard Chizmar, which is kind of Blair Witch type psychological horror. Very good. Loved it. American Rapture by CJ Lead. Gruesome horror. If you are squeamish, not for you, but if you like your horror graphic and gritty and like I do, American Rapture is for you. We have Hate Follow by Aaron Quinn Kong. This is a phenomenal book club title that is so timely in the age of posting everything in our lives. We have Remember You Will Die by Eden Robbins, which is one of the most uniquely formatted novels I have ever read. It is a story told over centuries, completely through obituaries. We have The Stone Witch of Florence, historical thriller. Look at that. Look at those edges on a galley. Super, super cool. 1348 Florence, with the woman who harnesses the hidden powers of gemstones, is banished and then is asked to come back and deal with the plague. The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern by Linda Cohen Leugman. Absolutely beautiful. And then Libby Lost and Found by Stephanie Booth. So those are all my titles. Renee, I know those tornadoes were absolutely something out of a cli-fi climate fiction book. It was just nuts. Bruce Holsinger, maybe 2 years ago, came out with a book called The Displacements, which was supposed to take place 50, 75 years into the future. And it envisions Cat 6 hurricanes, and this scares the crap out of me, because in his novel, he has 2 fast-growing hurricanes that hit the United States, one right after another. This book came out a couple of years ago. He was writing it years before that. And he was writing it as kind of a climate fiction, dystopian, futuristic novel. And they have to set up FEMA camps for residents of Florida and Georgia and Texas. So anyway, The Displacements by Bruce Holsinger. Maybe those of you who lived through it don't want to read about it, but it was an excellent, excellent novel. Thanks so much, Renee. Thanks for all your comments. And Kim, thank you for commenting. So happy to have you here with us. And thanks for supporting the Mighty Blaze. Again, you can go to our website and sign up for a newsletter so you don't miss any events. Check out our schedule of interviews. We've got great stuff coming up. And you can see all of our past interviews on our YouTube channel. So we also have our podcast. If you like podcasts, you can listen to past interviews there. We'll be back next month, possibly with holiday book recommendations is what I'm kind of guessing here. That's probably where I'm going to go with it, is sharing my favorite books that make great gifts. So I hope to see you back here. In the meantime, thanks again for joining, and everybody have a beautiful night. Bye, Julie.